very good morning to you. Welcome to the morning brief right here on Channels Television. It's a Friday edition of the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
And thank God it's Friday. Welcome to the perfect morning starter on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koga.
It's April the 17th, yes, technically the end of the week. I'm Kayode Okikyodo. The rains took a break today in Lagos, right? But that's not to say we shouldn't keep all the advisories to heart, particularly on the states that are most prone to flooding, the communities. But what is flooding the front pages, or you will see very soon, is naturally politics. And President Bola Tinubu had this meeting with the leaders and coordinators of the Renewed Hope ambassadors from the 36 states of the Federation at the State House, Abuja, yesterday. The group was led by the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, who of course is the Director General of the Renewed Hope ambassadors. So I think this is different from City Boy movement. It's almost like they're different groups here and there, but it looks like they're coordinated under one umbrella. And you know, the president spoke to wide range of issues, right? He talked about the politics of things, made reference to the ADC as well, and described Atiku Abubakar as the leader. He talked about some things which would let you listen to in a moment. He also talked about his plans. But you know, ultimately, I think the message that came through from the president is that the opposition won't scare him off, and he won't run from Nigeria's challenges. And I should say that right now is a time that Nigerians need to see more of the workings. But clearly, there is a lot of politics in the air right now. And for a lot of people, it's hard to really decipher which is which. A lot of people are carried away naturally. So once they hear something, they're not able to say, oh, this is politics, this is not governance. It's interesting how democracy works, how they have to run on two engines at the same time. There's an engine for governance, and there's an engine for politics. And most times, the political engine outpowers the governance engine. And again, it's where we're at right now. I really hope we get to that point where the engine for governance is the one running on full throttle, while the political engine naturally runs its course, but does not overshadow the governance engine. I know I'm talking a lot about engineering this morning, but I would eventually let you get sound bites from that meeting. But guys, it's a political season, and I'm always worried as to just how much value we're able to get from governance, because the first year of be it the president or governor is usually dealing with litigations. The last year deals with re-election or ensuring that whoever you want gets into office. So they really just have about 2 years, give or take, for governance. And that's usually my concern. I really hope that we can find a way to ensure that 4 years is 4 years for governance, and politics can come in the mix somewhere.
I don't know how to solve that problem, but I know that Ghana is trying to tweak the amendment to the constitution. The last time I was watching, they presented the proposal, the constitution amendment proposal to the president, and certain things were tweaked. You know, they run some kind of a parliamentary system where people in parliament can serve as cabinet members and all of that. They are trying to do a hybrid. They also raise this concern around the issue about electioneering, when governance should take sway in that sense. I've forgotten the exact way they wanted to do it in terms of legislation. But as for me, the best that can happen to us, the beginning, the more realistic one, is for the true independence of INEC, for the people to trust that when INEC announces a result, that result is, you can take it to the bank. Because people don't trust INEC, the loser, even the person who loses at a very distant end, wants to go to court. So that's what causes post-election litigations. So there are two ways to it. The first is, I was thinking by this electoral act, would have amended the electoral act such that all post-election litigations would have ended before anyone is inaugurated into office. That's the easiest and quickest way to stop at least the part that has to do with elections and litigations disturbing the first few months of governance. On the other hand, is also for INEC to raise its game and do their job such that people can trust that when they announce a result, there's no point going to court. The last election, I always refer to South Africa and Ghana. You know, the elections were won and lost. How many people went to court? There are countries that going to court after election looks very strange. But I hope we'll get there. So it's either by litigation, so that all election litigation, post-election litigation ends before inauguration. And more importantly, it's for INEC to come of age where when you lose an election, you know that, I did not canvass for enough votes from my people, that's why I lost. Not because there were shenanigans and then we go to court and then instead of being decided on the field, court now decides our election, which is a very shameful development for us.
That is reminiscent of what Plaque did yesterday, reminding the National Assembly of the need to, what's it called now? Amend the Electoral Act 2026, of course, to reflect the advocacy by civil society groups for the implementation of the special legislative seats for women, and of course other concerns expressed by civil society groups as far as the Electoral Act amendment is concerned. But will that be done ahead of the primaries that is set for between now and May? That's a very big question, and it also goes to reflect our disposition towards women inclusion and representation in governance. But Kayode asked a very critical question earlier on about, what really is the difference between the Renewed Hope ambassadors and the City Boy movement. When you mention Renewed Hope, it's reminiscent of the theme of the agenda of this administration, which is Renewed Hope. Perhaps the ambassadors are the non-absorbed or non-employed arm of the government to implement its agenda for the Nigerian people. And, whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it, would like to admit it or not, we see some of the programs of these groups under the All Progressives Congress, the ruling party, distributing empowerment tools to Nigerians. And in recent times, in the last couple of weeks in Imo State, to be precise, we saw that things turned awry with what some people termed the village boys, came to the city to hijack the program of the City Boy movement. And so how do you distinguish between, the expectations from governance and the results, from governance, especially at this critical time, when everything seems to be blurred, between politicking and election? But Mr. President has said that he would not be distracted by the criticisms of the opposition, and that indeed some of the challenges that he experienced in 2023 have prepared him for this time. And no matter how tough it gets, he would not run away from his responsibilities. And so we hope that the programs, whether it is of the employed arm of government in the cabinet or in the subnationals under the ruling All Progressives Congress, deliver on the promises, that brought this administration to power. So whether it's the elected and appointed arm or the emergency arm seen in the campaign arms of the ruling APC, the Renewed Hope movement, and the City Boy movement, we Nigerians are demanding the promises, made in terms of power, delivery of infrastructure, delivery of healthcare, good education. Do you have those things? If you do not have them, perhaps you want to continue to ask those questions of the administration and read between the lines beyond what the elected and appointed officials are saying. But are you actually fulfilled as a Nigerian?
So this difference in the Renewed Hope ambassador is the structure of the party, their own political structure to be able to get to polling unit levels, to be able to get votes for the party. City Boy is more of the group led by the president's son, Shei Tinubu, I almost say Shei Makinde, Shei Tinubu, to appeal to the younger generation. That's why I see them having their own ambassadors or state coordinators are young people, some businessmen, some different people, celebrities that choose to join into the politics and all of that. So that's basically, so on all sides they're trying to do what they can to bring their consciousness or the consciousness of the party and whatever it is the government has done in the last almost 3 years to the fore as a pitch to the Nigerian people. Now it's left for the Nigerian people to say I think we understand, we agree, or we don't agree, and that will be decided at the polls, and what the opposition is able to do, either in demarketing or putting out a different alternative policy direction that they can use to do better than what President Bola Tinubu is doing. But I think the president's, let's take a listen to the president in just a moment in that particular conversation he had with the ambassadors yesterday.
To renew their hope. If they don't want to see the hope and the roads that we bridge and the children we raise and the economy we are growing, we let them jiggy bola. We give them eyeglasses. I can assure you, this is whatever you say I do. But one thing that you need from me is a promise that I won't run away from the affair. With you, the deal is done.
So, that's the president. So with the ambassadors, well, that's his position. He's a party man. I know some people, so he's a party man, he has to be optimistic. He doesn't appear flustered. He said, wait, if you follow me on this path, I'm going to do my best. You're not in the wrong company. And he said, in fact, one of his aides, I can't remember which of his aides now, I think I watched or saw somewhere where one of his aides said, he's so unperturbed that on the day of election, he will not even bother to look at his scorecard. You know, that's not true. But, you know, Bukola and Kayode, I used to tell that this is the season of what we call political hot air. Everybody is confident until the election result is out. So, here you are.
Well, as we told you, we're in the political season, and that engine is running not full steam now, maybe full petrol, clearly not electric or CNG at this point. But we'll take a moment. When we return, we'll show you just how the dailies are reporting the big stories. Stay with us.
And we're back and set to dive into the papers, and it's an interesting mix this morning, perhaps answering the question of whether or not the APC government is ready for business and they have nothing to worry about. And so let the papers do the talking this morning, and Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us on the show. It's a very green day for you, Mr. Akintobi, this Friday.
Solidarity with the Nigerian troops.
Indeed.
Plus, producer gave us sartorial license on Fridays. So we got to leave the tie at home.
Okay. But somebody did not leave the tie at home this morning. We'll forgive him.
I will forgive him. He didn't get the memo.
Let's begin with The Guardian. How systemic collapse, corruption worsen inmates' plight behind bars. And you see, you know, typical in the character of The Guardian, the illustrations there, we see quite a number of information that has been put out, the weight of, you know, the systemic overload. 70% of prison population awaiting trial. 438% capacity overload in urban centers. I guess that speaks to prisons in urban areas. There's also 53,000 plus awaiting trial victims. So, Mr. Akintobi, I believe that you know, the Correctional Service has also, you know, been moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list, and so states are also supposed to be providing some form of intervention in that regard. What do you see, you know, to be the reason for the lack of intervention in this case? And of course, you know, the many promises that the Minister of Interior made at the beginning of this administration to reduce the congestion in the prisons.
One thing is clear. As a Nigerian today, you should not run afoul of the law for any reason. If somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek and let them slap you. Don't even think about slapping back, because if you accidentally, inadvertently, or by chance end up in the correctional system, you will regret your life forever. Because the situation is so dire in the prisons. I was reading this report and it is horrifying in terms of the conditions in which the inmates live and have to survive, in terms of their feeding, their medicals. There are 86 people in one tiny 6x6 cell, literally sleeping on top of each other. The guy said they get a picnic tin of Gary 3 times a day to eat.
When you mentioned peak milk, I was excited. When I heard Gary.
And if you read the horror
what
stories,
we call agolo in this part, and that's less than a liter.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And all of it actually boils down to corruption. It seems there's no sector of Nigerian life that corruption hasn't pervaded. Recently, the allocation for the daily feeding of inmates was increased to, I think, 1,152 naira per day for the feeding of the inmates. But essentially, even that amount, as meager as it is, based on food inflation of today, 1,000 can't really buy you much. But what they get on a daily basis is just a fraction of what that 1,000 can buy. And so what happens is that even in the system, corruption is flourishing just so that people can survive. So you see that some of the correctional officers are complicit. They sell services to the inmates that can afford to buy. The inmates' families that send them money, they have to use money to procure the minimum standard of living. And essentially, what has happened, and the Minister of the Interior has been trying to speak to this. In 2019, they reformed the entire correctional structure. This is even before the advent of this administration. That's when they changed it to Nigerian Correctional Service, when it used to be Nigerian Prisons or something. And they said, well, the whole purpose of custodial sentences is for reformation, that we should not so much focus on retribution. And I think that's where they missed the plot, is that if you offend civilization, you should be made to pay. That should be the primary purpose of a custodial sentence, is for you to pay your debt to society. Reforming you should be a secondary consideration. But if now put the reformation part ahead of the paying your price to society, and all of a sudden things have really spiraled downwards from there. Now, essentially, what you find is that you have about 80% of those in custodial sentences awaiting trial. There's 80,000 inmates in the correctional system. 60-something thousand of them are awaiting trial. Many of them for petty offenses, petty theft. There are hardened criminals among them. But the fact is that the judicial system is such a slow-moving train that it takes years and years and years for petty offenses to even get to trial. So the system is overpopulated by those who haven't even been convicted yet. If you look at,
isn't it curious, Mr. Kishobi, that 700 former terrorists have just passed through Operation Safe Corridor, and they will be rehabilitated into the society? I've
never understood that notion of rehabilitating terrorists, because I personally, my opinion, I don't agree with it. I think that if a person is a terrorist and they are apprehended, they should be made to pay the price for the crimes they committed. First of all, think about the victims, the people they victimize. How will those people feel seeing that thing on TV yesterday when they were graduating, all dressed gaily in Nigeria's colors, white with green caps, and reform? I don't even believe it's possible to reform a terrorist, because generally terrorism stems from conviction. It stems from ideology. It's not, many of them join voluntarily. Some of them maybe from economic hardship, but many subscribe to the notion of what those movements are proselytizing. So when you say you are reforming them, have you been able to enter into their head and restructure their mindset and their global outlook? So I think many of those people are generally just pretending, and that their innate nature still has terroristic tendencies, and that they've just scammed us or scammed the government and pretend to be rehabilitated, pretend to be de-radicalized. I said, how do you de-radicalize a radical? It's in his DNA. So go back to the prison system. The problems are primarily because of the pervasive corruption, which is unconscionable because you are going to a place where you are supposed to be a correctional center for reform. And yet, crime is flourishing there, corruption is so it's actually doing the opposite of its intended purpose. And for all the kudos that has been given to the Minister of Interior in terms of, oh, he's one of the star boys of this administration, I'm quite surprised that the correctional system could be in such bad state. And instead of rehabilitating people, it's actually hardening them. They are coming out as more hardened criminals because of the terrible conditions in which they live.
Let's go to This Nigeria. This Nigeria is next, leading with politics. 2027, I'm not scared. Tinubu tells ADC, says Atiku, Obi, Amaechi, no match for him. Wike says ex-VP going nowhere in the race. I leave that to you.
When I hear someone say they're not scared, it makes me think they are scared. Because if you truly weren't scared, you didn't have to say that. But he was actually preaching to the choir, really, in terms of the fact that it was this renewed hope ambassadors. And I saw it more like a motivational speech. He's rallying the troops and trying to assure them that this swelling opposition movement that's gaining so much momentum is not really a threat. But of course, it's a threat, and of course, any incumbent would be foolhardy to not pay attention to the competition. So I think what the president was doing was subliminally sending a message to the troops that we should wear an outward garb of confidence, but at the same time, let's not let our guard down. He mentioned the opposition, specifically talked about Atiku and some of his antecedents. And when he was saying that, I was thinking to myself, he said, well, there's nobody that doesn't have faults. There's nobody that hasn't faltered. And I thought to myself, well, you yourself faltered when you were governor. So there's been no perfect politician, and there never will be. But you move forward with the best of intentions. This government's record is a mixed bag. That's the advantage of incumbency. You can run on your record. So, of course, he believes that he's done the best and continues to do the best for the country. He talked about his economic reforms. He talked about students being able to now go to school because of the Nail Fund program. He talked about the various things his administration has tried to do. The ultimate juror are the Nigerian people who will grade his scorecard come 2027 election and say whether they truly believe that all the things he has done has bettered the quality of life of the ordinary Nigerian. I would say that it will be a referendum on his governance when it comes to 2027. But as a leader, as the head of the party, as a person seeking re-election, that was him just rallying the troops yesterday, and most of it was campaign rhetoric and giving a shot in the arm to the troops who are going to go out there and sell his candidacy.
Well, let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper. Mr. Akintobi leads with not politics this time round, but the economy. Vanguard says rising costs, IMF warns of tough times for Nigerians, urges fiscal discipline as food, transport prices surge, flags rising debt burden, says debt to GDP seen at 33% by 2027. Analysts back IMF urge FG to utilize oil windfall efficiently. Let me just say to the IMF, welcome to the party. Right. Yeah, we know, we see this already, and we've talked about this time and again, but it seems to carry some more weight all of a sudden when the IMF or any of the Bretton Woods institutions speak about this. But I want us to speak to the story under the big picture. Gunmen abduct 14 UTME candidates in Benue. School owner, 4 others kidnapped in Kwara. So while the president was speaking about his achievements, particularly in the education sector,
yes,
with the student loan and all of that, this came up. Now, these students were traveling to write the UTME on Wednesday,
yes,
around 7 to 8 p.m.
Yes.
And the report we gather was that they were kidnapped along the Benue Burn Bricks area They were on board a Benue Links bus.
Yes.
And it was said that the bus driver was not meant to
be on the road that late at night.
There's a certain policy about driving at night that the manager had closed. But this is where we're at right now. These young boys and girls are somewhere. They're meant to be writing exams, Mr. Kintobi.
Yes.
Well, they're in the bush somewhere.
Yes.
So clearly this is part of what Nigerians will look at and say, well, we see these things happening.
Yes, and the president alluded briefly, he segued a bit into the issue of insecurity. He touched on it briefly and said, well, we're winning the war against insecurity and we're throwing everything we can at it. But when you see disheartening things like this happen, and it's all the more unconscionable because they're children, they're young ones, and you get a sense that these kidnappers actually target the vulnerable because it's more heart-wrenching when it is children, when it is women, when it is the elderly, when you hear instances. That's why when they go to the schools, they usually go to the girls' schools and go and pack a whole bunch of young females and take them off into the bush. That is so heart-wrenching that there's an outpouring of concern from the public, as opposed to if you or you or me, Kayode, who are viewed as men who can take care of themselves and who can survive better in the bush than young vulnerable people. So this I don't know where the logistical lapse came in to why a bus should be on the road at 8 p.m. on the road from Makurdi to Otukpo in Benue State, why it should have been, despite the fact that Benue is a hotbed of terroristic activity today. Why? So I think that driver has a lot to answer. Let's hope he wasn't complicit, or let's hope, because he escaped with another passenger. It was 14 of the students that were taken into the bush. So I think the driver has some questions to answer, especially if truthfully his company did have a policy that those buses should not be on the road at night. And so our hearts go out to the parents. I can imagine what the parents are going through right now. The children were supposed to, like you say, the very next day, I think this happened on Wednesday. So yesterday they were supposed to be writing the UTME. They're somewhere in the bush being terrorized and scared to death. And it just continues to speak to this issue of insecurity. And I just keep asking myself that, is there any magic wand that the government can wave to make this thing go away? Because I seem to think that all the strategies we've tried have failed. None have resolved this issue. Both kinetic, non-kinetic. Bukola was talking about rehabilitation of terrorists. That doesn't seem to have stemmed the tide. The issue of throwing military support, even foreign help. America has come to the country with 200 specialists. The incidences have ratcheted up since they got here. They haven't reduced.
They even asked their staff to leave.
Which, by the way, talking about that, there seems to be a report that there's a threat on Abuja, and I'm saying, did America really know something? Because a couple of weeks ago they asked their staff to evacuate, non-emergency staff to evacuate. Then all of a sudden today we start hearing that there's a threat on Abuja airport, the correctional centers in the Abuja area, and some others. So I'm saying perhaps America really knew something when they issued that warning.
But the president of the Senate said, well, the warning by America is largely because of what's playing out in Iran. It's a function of Iran and not a function of security in Nigeria. So it's really sad. What we want and what we know is that those students must be rescued.
Yes.
As well as others who are still in captivity across the country. It almost looks like there is a parallel government of insecurity or terrorists who are operating with free will. They go out, get people, go back into their own enclave, come out at will, go back. It doesn't make sense. But that's the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. Well, the IMF story is big. We know it already. So maybe page 5 if you want more details.
The shocker there is that it's saying that we're in for tougher times. Can it get any tougher than it already is?
Well,
that's scary.
The answer is somewhere in between. Well, speaking of the 200 soldier support from the U.S., well, we heard the Minister of Defense speaking to that, saying that it's going to take time because training is still ongoing. So how long will training go for? Remember, they also told us upon the arrival of the military support and the soldiers to Nigeria that they were going to offer support in terms of intelligence besides training. So that should be leading us somewhere significant. But what we're seeing is burial of commanders and soldiers and the killing of our soldiers. But let's head to the front page of New Telegraph this morning. And there are quite a number of stories. Of course, the New Telegraph also trails on the president's declaration of no fear during that interaction with the Director General of the Renewed Hope ambassadors. That's the governor of Imo State. But there are also a number of stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. You see above the big story, a number of stories, of course, with the characters involved. There's this one, alleged $1.3 million fraud, court orders arrest of ex-humanitarian affairs minister, that's Sadia Umar Farouk. And this is coming, even not nearly 2 years after the commission initially quizzed the former minister, and of course, following the scandal that saw to the exit of the superintending minister. And so, what are your thoughts on this? Should we begin to take this with a pinch rather than a pack of salt against a backdrop of what seems to have trailed the anti-corruption war of this administration, with many more saying, this is more political, more of a witch hunt than any real fight towards fighting corruption?
There seems to be a trend of people in positions of authority behaving badly. If you look even beyond this administration, you see CBN governor, when you see the parade of people going through our courts in terms of allegations, and you see the weighty positions they occupied, it's really worrisome. You see a former CBN governor, at one point the former EFCC chairman, even the last IGP, there was issues of 100 million naira passing through his son's account. You see the previous Attorney General of the Federation being brought up on charges of all sorts of misappropriation of funds and abuse of power. You see the humanitarian ministry, that one swallowed up 2 ministers, because after the person, there was the Better Edu incident as well. And you ask yourself that, what is it about being in government that makes people behave badly in terms of when they have responsibilities, especially relating to public funds and public accountability everywhere you turn? And I begin to wonder if this is not just the tip of the iceberg. These are just the people who have been publicly brought up, whether for political reasons or whether their cases were so blatant. I sense that the rot is a lot deeper than what we're seeing, because I think it's too much of a very remote possibility that this many people have their hands in the cookie jar that we're beginning to see publicly. So I think the rot seeps a lot deeper, both in the political appointees and in the civil service. And it's easy to have an anti-corruption stance, but what actual steps are being taken? Many people are just being let off with a slap on the wrist. You hear about a plea bargain. A former minister of aviation returned some money to the government and was let go. And I have always said that even if you enter into a plea agreement, you still got to pay a price, because you return a portion of the money should not obviate a prison sentence for betraying a public trust. So the anti-corruption fight seems to just be more of a slogan than a real commitment to fighting it, because if that were the case, we'd be seeing plenty prison sentences. When Odius Okalu got sentenced to prison, a lot of people were jubilant that, okay, now we're seeing big wigs going. He got off on a technicality and came out and is today in the Senate making a lot of comment, and he's the #1 advocate for this special bill for women. And each time I listen to him, I look at him and I say, my God, because the thing is, what is the caliber of the people we are entrusting with our Commonwealth?
A fine place to anchor it, Mr. Akitobe. And you said some who go for are in prison for mere theft, maybe of a phone, are in those dungeons, but those who have stolen our Commonwealth are walking free.
Living the lavish life.
Food for thought for this weekend.
Absolutely.
Mr. Daya Akitobe is a journalist and public affairs analyst who has come through on this one regularly, so on Friday. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure always. Good morning, Nigeria.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we'll begin the very first conversation. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Well, the president had a meeting with Renewed Hope ambassadors led by the governor of Imo State. Incidentally, Hope Uzodimma, and he said quite a number of things. So right now, it is clear that politics is in full swing as we build up to the 2027 presidential election. But the big question is, how has governance fared? Because I described the two engines. There's the governance engine and there's a politics engine. Naturally, politics should be made easier by the outcomes of governance, and then politics feeds back into governance with the policies. So let's have a conversation and sort of walk through what the Renewed Hope ambassadors, or what the APC will be selling to Nigerians. We're joined on the program by a member of the party, a senior advisor on new media to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Rotimi Amaechi, joins us from our Abuja studio. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. K. How are you doing? Thank you for having me. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, just like Nigerians who are watching closely how things are playing out within your party, the APC, government, coalition, across the board, right? And we'll just kick off from that meeting the president had with the Renewed Hope ambassadors, where the president said, well, nobody's going to scare me off. And he talked about some of his achievements in office, saying that people who are not seeing it need glasses. They need to take his glasses and look closely. But if you just take a look at the front pages this morning, you see the story of the abduction, for example, of students who are going to write the UTME exams. There are requests across board. People saying, well, my relative has been kidnapped. Our community members still remain in captivity. Let us get them out. What exactly is government doing? At some point, people are believing that there's some complicity, because these terrorists, bandits, criminals cannot be conducting themselves in such manner in a nation where there is a government, right? So in terms of what you'll be selling to Nigerians, how do you want to swing this conversation around insecurity that is staring us in the face?
Yeah, you have started this conversation on a very tough note, because insecurity to me is always emotional. Because even if the government is doing excellently in other areas, even if this government has not witnessed serious banditry attacks and insecurity challenges, the moment one person is threatened along insecurity lines, then we must be bothered, because that is the primary duty of governments, to secure the lives of their citizens. However, I listened to the stakeholders in Jos when the crisis happened, when the victims gathered. The stakeholders that are indigents and leaders at one point or the other, either as current or previous leaders of that state, speak to us as to the historical narrative of the insecurity, or the historical dimension of the insecurity in that axis. Many of these challenges predate even our independence. Some of it predates the Fourth Republic. So many times when a government comes in, when certain challenges are fully matured, they must begin to tackle it from the root. We cannot say we are not in this country when these things commenced. Atiku granted an interview on Arise, and he said that Boko Haram started in 2002, and he thought they quenched it. No, they didn't quench it. Boko Haram was maturing at the point. They were gathering momentum. They were forming their structures. So they didn't nip it in the bud at that time, and it became a menace. It became a cancer disturbing the rest of us now. Insecurity is quite a very sensitive topic, and we have seen many times what the government has done even to tackle some of it. Only that many times when there is a crisis or an incident along the security lines, 5, 10 or even 15 may have been prevented before then. But it is the one that went ahead to be successful that becomes a major news, and as it is, and as it should be. However, we have seen our military architecture many times apprehend many of these criminals, these terrorists. Some of them have just been recently convicted. We have seen many times them forestalling possible hits on our danger zones. We have seen these things, and we have seen many of these kidnaps happen, and the government has been proactive enough or necessarily reactive to get those victims back. In previous governments, without necessarily comparing unfortunate situations, in previous government, the first reaction to news like this is always denial. You recall that when they kidnapped the Chibok girls, for days, the government didn't move a needle because they thought they have to be politically correct ahead of, tackling the issues as they happened. So we must give this government its credit as much as we must also acknowledge the challenges. However, the reaction of this government to insecurity incidents have been much better, have been more fruitful, and have been more productive. We must admit, honestly.
Well, as of this year, January, there was a denial, I must say, in Kaduna State where about 100 church worshippers were kidnapped. I'm sure you heard that as well from the state and the police itself. So we've seen some of these denials, right? And it's quite interesting the way you frame it. But this party, the APC, has had 11 years to deal with insecurity. So if, yes, some of them predate this government, Boko Haram started in 2002, some will even tell you the roots maybe much earlier. But for a government that has had 11 years to deal with this same challenge, in fact, it is one of the reasons that General Buhari, the late General Buhari, was elected as Nigeria's president, because of the background of, the military. A lot of people assumed that he would be able to handle that well. But this is where we are, almost worse off than where we used to be. So is that really a tenable excuse in that sense, when you've had 11 years?
God forbid I try to excuse insecurity. Like I said, even as much as one Nigerian's life is at stake, there's no excuse good enough to provide. However, if you want to make that comparison, we recall here in Abuja, where I currently reside, Nigerians couldn't sleep. Major public institutions were constantly hit in the heart of Abuja. Now we are speaking of reaction. How is the government reacting to it compared to previous governments? You recall there was a time in this country where Nigeria couldn't even secure arms from foreign nations. The foreign countries couldn't trust Nigeria enough to sell weapons and war equipment to the country. But I think it was last year when the US president said, Nigeria, guns are blazing, disgraced nation, and the opposition went to the market flying, thinking, okay, yes, this is the best way for them to score political points. However, look at Ashwaju's and this government reaction to that potentially volatile situation. Many countries have gone down on the backs of mismanagement of such high diplomatic situation. Now, we moved that conversation from confrontation to collaboration. Today, we have US partner with Nigeria in some areas in tackling insecurity. We are speaking of reaction to it. This incident still happen. I do not want to say which was more or which government experienced more terrorist and insecurity situations, because Nigerians' lives are at stake. But we must examine the reaction of government and the way they are tackling it compared to other regimes or other tenures. This government you mentioned that the cardinal government and perhaps the agencies denied. The agencies having information they have may first of all think the first thing is to calm the situation. However, the federal government at the level of Ashwaju's administration, it has never been our stock in trade to embrace denial in favor of tackling the situation or in favor of taking action as far as insecurity is concerned. So we are talking of the reaction. This government has been more proactive, has been more productively reactive, and has also many times had been ahead of this terrorist attack. Only that when one happens, it negates whatever successes that may have occurred prior to them. That is the challenge we have. And insecurity is sensitive. We cannot blame Nigerians if they continue to hold us to our account on these insecurity challenges. It is germane, it is necessary. We speak to it every day as much as we can. However, the media must also help us to promote those instances where the gallant military forces make successes. That way we balance the narrative and we do not depress or dampen the morale of our military.
So if this administration will not embrace denial but takes responsibility and deploys a different approach, would it admit failure and incompetence, especially because when it first came to power in 2015, it came on the heels of the slogan of change. And when it returned in 2023, it was on renewed hope and on a promise to solve the challenge of insecurity. But more than 3 years down the line now, or nearly 3 years rather down the line, it's been totally unable to do so, with many communities vulnerable, without protection, and even those that are closest to a police formation are as close as only 40 minutes. And when an attack happens, this supposed security agents only go there to count bodies. So will this administration admit failure and incompetence?
I do not think it's a matter of this government admitting failure. Again, I say, as much as one Nigerian's life is at stake, this government must take responsibility. Therefore, if any institution must admit failure, it's the Nigerian states, historically and before now. For example, Atiku mentioned in that interview at prior time that his solution to insecurity challenges is to put more boots on ground. Exactly what the Asiwaju administration is doing. But this more boots on ground, this conversation has been there for more than 20 years. The armed forces strength in terms of numbers has not significantly increased since the turn of the Fourth Republic. Whose fault is that? Why have there not been deliberate and intentional recruitment into our armed forces to bolster the numbers? The best time to plan for war, madam, is during peace. Unfortunately, previous governments that enjoyed relative peace in their tenure did not prepare for this kind of day. We took it for granted that Nigeria is somehow insulated from the insecurity and terroristic tendencies that was at that time even creeping in our neighboring countries. And at the time of peace, we didn't plan for war. That is why we are where we are. So it is not this government admitting failure. We met it the way they are. The Chibok girls, when they were kidnapped, it took years before even some of them were freed from their captors. It took years. Many of the kidnap incidents we've had now under this administration, as unfortunate as they are, they shouldn't happen in the first place. But many of them, the government had been up in arms and had been on their toes to ensure safety is restored, productivity, because if you can make as much as that on a dollar in the black market, why produce? So they do not have, they are not alternatives. By their admission, they are not capable. And Atiku said as much, saying all of them do not have the structure. He said none of them have the experience. He referred to Jonathan's government as being a failure because Jonathan lacked the requisite experience to be president. And Jonathan was deputy governor. Jonathan was governor. Jonathan was vice president before becoming president.
All right.
But according to him, they are not experienced enough.
All right.
If Jonathan was not experienced enough, the rest that are the best governors are also not experienced. So Atiku has helped us in our arguments.
Well,
saying his partners in the ADC do not have the experience to govern.
Well,
so they are not a threat at all because they don't have a party yet.
It's done, but clearly this is the start of the conversation. Interesting times ahead, and we'll still x-ray those policy plans of the government and of course of the coalition as well. We'll be speaking with APC member and essay on new media to the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Rotimi Amaechi. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. Good day, Nigerians.
Well, we'll take a moment now, and when we return, one of the key figures in Nigeria's coalition, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi, joins us in a moment. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Let's bring in our guest, who is not saying, doesn't need any form of introduction. Former governor of Rivers State, former minister of transportation, and a key figure contender for the 2027 presidential election in the ADC, Mr. Rotimi Amaechi. Your Excellency, good morning and welcome to the program. Your Excellency, if you can hear us, good morning, sir.
I said good morning. I said good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you for coming on the program this morning. I think we'll just start from what has been playing out in the less than 24 hours. Let's start from there before we dig deep into other things as far as the state of the nation and the opposition is concerned. The president was speaking with renewed hope ambassadors yesterday, represented across the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT. And it was literally rallying his people to say, look, we can get this done. In fact, with you guys, it's a done deal. I have nothing to fear. I'm not intimidated by anyone. If there's anything they cannot do is to intimidate me. It looks like, despite the rallying of the opposition, the formidable force the ADC is causing, the president, doesn't look flustered. You've been with him. You've seen how this thing play out. You were at the vanguard of the APC in 2015 on the streets, and you led the campaign of Muhammadu Buhari twice. What do you think the president is saying? And is it that confident? Is the ADC also looking at him and saying, maybe this man is really ready for us?
If he's confident, tell him to tell Nuhu Ribadu to leave his judiciary and INEC alone if he's confident. Why apply the use of the institutions, the federal institutions against the ADC? Tell him that if he's confident, he should instruct his national secretary advisor to leave the judiciary and INEC alone and see whether he will win the election.
What do you mean by, Your Excellency, what do you mean? That's a strong allegation. Are you saying Nuhu Ribadu is intimidating the judiciary or the INEC? What are you saying in essence? Because their job doesn't look like they meet at any point in time.
I will not explain. If you don't have eyes, leave it. Even Nuhu knows that. And he brags about it. That's the funny part of it. If he thinks he's capable of winning the election, they should allow the INEC and judiciary alone. Look at the interpretation of the ruling or judgment by the Court of Appeal. Amupitan interpreted the judgment to be that we are leaderless. But that's not true. And that's not what the law says.
Are you saying, sir, that in a free, fair, credible election, that Bola Tinubu will lose with all he has in terms of 36 governors, lawmakers, and his rallying team across the grassroots?
Whether free, fair, or unfair and not free, if we are on the ballot, President Bola Tinubu will lose the election. Take it for free. Take it for granted. Look, the problem is he does not want a strong candidate on the ballot. So what are they doing? What they are doing is that they are interfering with all the parties using the judiciary as an institution. So every day they go to court, they get all sorts of funny judgments and all that. Let them allow the institutions to pursue justice. Let there be justice. And let them allow all the political parties to have candidates on the ballot and see whether President Bola Tinubu will win. How can you win with such an economy? How can you win with such an insecurity? How can you win when the president can't even campaign? When the president will stop at Plateau Airport. So how will he go to start to campaign in Plateau? I don't think we should address this issue. If you want to address some other important issues, then we go to that point. The point is, the strategy that they are applying is simple. Let us use government institutions to stop the people. Simple.
And speaking of winning, you are a major contender for the ADC ticket, all things being equal. But you also worked under the last administration of late President Muhammadu Buhari, a key minister in that administration. And as my colleague has just mentioned, you led his campaign twice. And for many, that administration set Nigeria back many years in terms of its management of the economy and finances. So for those who see your aspiration, and perhaps if you eventually got the ticket, as a minus, a baggage for Nigeria rather than a plus, what do you say to them? How would you defend your aspiration as a contender for the presidential ticket?
First, I don't agree with you. There's a difference between myself and President Buhari. I was governor of that state. Can we do a referendum? All the candidates who are, or aspirants who are running for presidency, including President Bola Tinubu, have served government. Do a referendum. Go to P2B, go to Anambra State and see what is done. Go to the Vice President Atiku was Vice President. Let's see what he's done. Let's see what he's done in customs. Let's look at what Tinubu did in Lagos. Let's look at what Tinubu is doing in Nigeria now. Come to Rotimi Amaechi in Rivers State. See what I've done in Rivers State. Look at what I've done in transportation and choose who will be the presidential candidate or choose who will be the president. That's what to do. When you now compare, oh, you were part of President Buhari's government. Of course I was. We are better than Tinubu by far. But from the day I left Minister of Transport, that is the day the way construction stopped. We put the security facilities in place in our water, and there was security in our water. Is it the same thing today? Now they are paying 1.something trillion naira to militants to protect pipes. Did we do that? Was corruption this high? Was a bag of rice this costly? Were people being killed everywhere in this magnitude? Yes, people are dying in Buhari's government, not in this magnitude. Where governors will enter armored personnel carrier to address their citizens. For Christ's sake, can you please, can you please? Look, let the country assess us based on all the things. We have held public positions. All of us have held public positions. I was speaker, so assess me by the role I played as Speaker of Parliament in Rivers State. I was governor. Go and assess what I did. I'm the only governor in Nigeria who confronted insecurity and surmounted insecurity in Nigeria. So check that. That's what you should do. You just check all that. So we can stop this argument of who is a better candidate, who is a better person, who can manage the country. I've managed the country before, not in the magnitude of the president. I've managed the Ministry of Transport. I discharged my responsibility as the Minister for Transport. I consulted. I completed the Kaduna Abuja rail line. I started and completed the Lagos Ibadan rail line. I built a brand new seaport that Lagos State government was claiming that they built it. I built it from beginning to the end. Completed the Lekki Deep Seaport. I started it. I broke the ground. I completed it. Because I resigned as minister, the Lagos State government currently got President Buhari to commission it. I built a train factory where locomotives and coaches can be assembled here in Nigeria. Nobody knows. They've abandoned it. They're abandoned, completed. So ordinarily by now we should be producing or assembling coaches and locomotives. But it's completely abandoned. It's somewhere close to Lagos, completed. And that was not even something that federal government paid for. It was part of my agreement with the company that must do something in Nigeria. So when you ask the question, oh, you are part of Buhari's government, of course I was. Was Buhari government better than this government? Of course it was. It's better than President Buhari, President Tinubu's government. You see, the difference between me and all candidates you mentioned, President Tinubu, I'm the only national candidate. I'm the only Nigerian candidate. I'm neither Igbo, some are running as Igbo candidate. I'm neither am I Hausa Fulani, some are running as Hausa. Vote for me because I'm Hausa Fulani. I'm saying vote for me because I'm Nigerian. President Tinubu is running because he's a Yoruba man. I'm going as, look, I don't care who else is running. I'm running because I'm a Nigerian candidate, because I know the Nigerian problem and I can solve the Nigerian problem.
Well, it looks like you're asking Nigerians, to pick between, two evils, perhaps the lesser evil. And perhaps Nigerians may be wanting to ask you if you would take responsibility for selling the last administration to them. But let's make progress in the conversation now and look at other issues. And it may not be lost.
Not correct. You're not correct. I didn't say choose between two evils. I said compare all the activities of everybody who has held the position before in the past. Do a referendum and choose from there.
But would you take responsibility for selling the last administration to Nigerians, but the administration failed Nigerians?
You're saying that. I said compare the last government to the present government. This is worse. This is absolutely worse.
But let's leave that for Nigerians to decide. I move to another very important matter, and it may not be lost on Nigerians that the coalition leaders, are coming out to speak to them one after the other. And drawing from the comments of former Vice President, who also spoke recently, who has, spoken to the matter of zoning and said, in fairness to the North, if you do the calculation, the North has not actually had the same number of years that the South has had to run, and that in that regard, he is a contender for the ticket, regardless of the subject of zoning. What would you say to that, especially as it has implications for who would now eventually emerge as, the presidential flag bearer of the ADC, all things being equal? Would you be willing to, stand down should Alhaji Atiku Abubakar becomes the contender, the flag bearer of the ADC ticket?
Of course, if he wins, I will support him. But beyond him winning, whether I have to be primary, I don't agree with those who say they have become a consensus candidate. Let's go and face the people. Let the people choose who they want in the party. But let's look at Vice President Atiku. He's eminently qualified to be the president of Nigeria. If within his right to contest for the office of the president of Nigeria, the issue of zoning or no zoning, what President Atiku will realize, Vice President Atiku will have to realize, is that when we are all in PDP, this zoning thing is the PDP thing. When we started, it should start from when PDP started in zoning. and say whether it's been fair to the South. But I don't agree with South, North, or North, or whatever. What I agree with is that the most qualified candidate be allowed to govern, to be elected. Now, let's look at it. Now, a 39 or 49-year-old president has been elected in Benin Republic. So how would any president who is in his 70s, I'm the youngest candidate among all those running now, 60. The rest of them are 60s and 70. President Tinubu says he's 74, and President Atiku is 80, and I'm 60. Now, this requires capacity. It requires capacity at least to wake up in the morning, at least to be able to keep awake and listen to people, at least to be able to look at the problems, at least to put yourself on the road straight to Jos to find out what's happening in Jos. At least you must have the ability to be able to go to Borno State and find out who. Look, if I'm the president, I'll be at the forefront of those who are fighting the war to stop this shooting. So do we have a president who can wake up in the morning before 12 and see people and say what's going on, can be briefed and say, okay, can we have more meetings? Can we go and find solutions to problems? So Atiku is within Vice President Atiku is within his right to say I want to run. Nobody's stopping him from wanting to run. But then he has to also understand that there are other factors beyond where he comes from. So I told you earlier, I said I'm not running because I'm not a regional candidate. They are all regional candidates. I'm not a regional candidate. I'm not saying vote for me because I'm Igbo. I'm partially Igbo. By my name, you can see that. But that does not. I'm not saying vote for me. I'm Igbo. No. I'm not also saying vote for me because I'm Hausa Fulani. I have said to Nigerians, leave religion and ethnicity alone. That's what put us here. Those who helped President Tinubu to become president were pursuing religious agenda. They were so happy to do a Muslim ticket. They were so happy that they have overcome the other religions in Nigeria. Today, they have discovered that the market does not know Christians or Muslims. The market does not know that. The market understands just one language, Naira and Kobo. It doesn't understand any other language. Now everybody's suffering. Everybody's looking for food to eat. People can buy fuel. People can travel. Now the airlines are threatening to increase cost of transportation. Everything is skyrocketing. For Christ's sake, President Tinubu does not have the right to speak. He doesn't. He promised power and said if he doesn't give power, they should not vote for him. So I just have waited to vote him out.
Right. Well,
same manner. If Vice President Atiku is saying the only qualification he has to be president is because he's from the north, well and good. Let's look at it from his own perspective, if that qualifies him. But like I said, it's within his right to contest. Let's go and do the primary election. If he is telling Nigeria to vote for me because I'm a northerner, then it means that on the election day, not to vote for him, South should not vote for him. That's what she's saying.
Well,
is it what you're telling me?
Right. You know, it's quite interesting, your approach. You're not only disqualifying the candidate of the APC and the president, you're also doing that for your colleagues in the coalition, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Peter Obi. I wonder what that will do to the current coalition, because it looks like a bull in a china shop. There's going to be a lot of damage even within the coalition. Yes, maybe doing damage to the ruling party, but even the coalition, by actively disqualifying them on the basis of age, their own ethnicity, whether they are running as a Hausa Fulani candidate or as an Igbo candidate. Don't you think that will do more harm to the coalition?
No. I'm saying the question she asked is that when Vice President Atiku was interviewed, he said, look, the North has not had enough to match the South. And I said, for me as a candidate, it doesn't matter whether you're from the North or the South. There are other factors that play. The Vice President is within his right to contest. Nobody should stop him because he's a Northerner or because he's not a Northerner. No. You can't say to him, look, because you're not qualified. You're disenfranchising Northern elites who are qualified to contest position. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that not forget that I was saying that he is eminently qualified to be the president of the country. He has been vice president, he has governed with President Obasanjo. I'm also saying that there are other factors to consider in the governance. So the argument that the vice president has put in place of North and South will not be the only factor. There is a factor of age, there is a factor of capacity which I'm saying that Tinubu does not possess. We have not checked the capacity of Vice President Atiku because he has not been a president. We have seen the capacity of President Tinubu. Peter Obi was governor of Anambra State. He did well as governor of Anambra State. You can't also keep him aside. I'm saying, but I will not run as an Igbo candidate. I'm not an Igbo candidate. a Nigerian candidate. I will not run as not a candidate because I'm a Nigerian candidate. Because I understand the problem of the South, I understand the problem of the North, I understand everybody's problem, and by God's grace, if I'm elected, I will do I will share my responsibility very well. So it is not about my colleagues in the other part, in my party. It is more about when you say that the vice president is talking about zoning, and I say I'm not interested in zoning.
Right.
I'm not.
Right. So I want us to talk to the issues as well. I mean, we could talk about all of the ancillary issues, but let's take a look at the current government, President Bola Tinubu's administration. For the economy, he removed subsidy for the FX and for petrol as well. For education, there's a student loan, which has been touted as one of the wins of this government. For security, for example, there's the move towards state police. In fact, the IGP has submitted a working document to the National Assembly, and the president has spoken to it time and again. There was meant to be that win, in quote, for local government autonomy that this government pushed to the Supreme Court, gave a judgment. So the big question is, what would you do differently?
If these policies you don't mention are the policies they are talking about, I would not be part of the policies. The policies, there are policies that President Tinubu is portraying that are not bad as they seem to be. What is making them bad now is because the funds that are coming out of the savings are going to private pockets. Let the president account for those money. If those money were put back into the economy, individuals, society, Nigeria would be better than what it is now.
Which of the funds do you refer to?
I'm referring, for instance, the what they call this fund, the savings coming from oil subsidy. So where is the money?
You say it's going to private pockets?
Of course. If it's not going to private pockets, where is the money? What have they done with the money?
Well, the government has said time and again that the states are getting more, and we see that the figures are more than they used to be. So which of the private pockets are these monies going into?
The fact that the money is going to the state does not also in any way discharge the responsibility of the president asking what is happening to the money, or the citizens asking for what's happening to the money. Now, even if it goes to the state, so what are the developments in the states? Let's go to education. There are no schools where you can see new primary schools. There are no states where I've seen new primary schools, or I've seen teachers hired, or I have seen improvement in education. I have not seen any. Currently, we have 20 million out of school children. 20 million. When I was governor, it was 10 million. So less than 10 years ago, they've added another 10 million. How? Under Buhari was less than 15 million. So in less than 2-3 years of President Buhari, we have added about 6 million out of school children. So we're now 20 million. So the question becomes, so what is he doing as a president? Now,
the UNICEF that figure at 10.5. Pardon me, just for the out-of-school children, the UNICEF puts it at 10.5. So perhaps you have another figure?
No, that's not correct. I wish I had my documents here. Okay. I can be 10.5. I think it was 10 million when I was governor.
Oh, so who's your figure credited to?
Is it UNESCO? I'll get that to you. I'll get that to you.
All right.
But I'll get that to you. I will. If you give me the next 15 minutes, I'll give you that information, and I have the facts to that case. So the question to ask is President Tinubu making improvement in education by introducing loans? No. He impoverishes you, then introduces loan as a way to assuage your feeling. That doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. So I think that he pulling us backward.
Sorry, so, just to be clear, for the 10.5, it's for GSS. So together, I think it's about 18.5 million. The government also disputes that, so that might be closer to the figure you put. But there's the education bit. There's a security bit.
I've seen here out of school children population with estimates ranging from 18 million.
Right. So there's the other bits of the question about what you will do differently, and I think that's one of the conversations they have put out. Are you going to reverse some of them in terms of
Let's look what I would do differently.
Right.
The first thing is that the president needs to stop corruption. The money that politicians are stealing would have been used to build primary schools in all over the state. So if the president is serious, he should partner with the governors, hold back the money, the savings he's getting from the subsidy, and see if they can build primary schools in every village. Why at this age is Nigeria still struggling with primary schools, secondary schools, university? Why? I told people that President Trump and Iran can afford to fight wars because they have no problem. They have not such challenges like primary schools, secondary schools, university, health centers, general hospitals. They've exceeded that. They're talking about AI. So I think if I were to be President Tinubu, I think he needs to sit down with his people. He needs to sit down with Minister of Education. He needs to sit down with governors. He needs to deal with two issues. First and foremost, he needs to deal with primary health care. And primary health care can be built in every state. Then you ask yourself, what are the doctors? You can train doctors. You can ensure that there are college of medicine in which doctors are trained. We may not have enough, but that's the beginning. If you also call the governors together, you can the savings you're having from oil subsidy, you can build primary schools with the governors all over the country. There are so many villages in the north that don't have primary school. People don't go to school, and the president is not worried. What about security?
Your Excellency, just a moment before we come to security. So let's put this out as frontal as possible. So you are saying that you agree with the president on removal of fuel subsidy and removal of subsidy on FX by devaluing the naira. Is that what you're saying emphatically?
No. I'm for now talking about removal of oil subsidy. That I agree. But I'm saying the savings should be given back to Nigerians. If that happens, you know why I have always said that there should be removal of oil subsidy? Because Nigerian elites are stealing the money in the name of subsidy. So why not we get the money and hand back to Nigerians?
How do you hand? So help us understand. How do you want to hand over the money to the citizens? How do you want to do that?
I don't mean hand over cash. I've just told you here. You can start with primary schools, start with secondary schools, start with universities, start with primary healthcare centers. Let Nigerians have access to these things. You see, it's also about affordability, accessibility and affordability. In Rivers State, the first thing we did was to build primary schools in literally every village. Every village. The next thing we did is to build primary healthcare centers in every village. What did we do again? We employed over 400 doctors to man those health centers. We employed 13,200 teachers to enable those, and that was the beginning, because when we did our assessment, we needed 90,000 teachers in Rivers State.
We didn't have Your Excellency, without cutting your thought, you've been a governor, and sometimes you've had a running battle with a sitting president that led to your exit from a political party. How much can a president do in influencing subnational? Because you've been a governor, and you've given presidents tough time as well. You may have all these lofty ideas. I'm sure the president may have those lofty ideas. But what do you do when the governors are not bulging?
For Christ's sake, there's what's called the Governors Forum. Every president that has called a meeting of the Governors Forum has always had his way. Always had his way. All you need to do is call the Governors Forum to a meeting. These are my expectations. We can't govern this country the way it is being governed currently. So these are my expectations. Can we partner? Can we do this? And give them timeline, and give yourself timeline to deliver. So the governors are not mad. They are human beings. Unfortunately, the Governors Forum is no longer functioning the way it was functioning when I was governor.
So before I allow my colleague come in, the issue of security, both the Jonathan administration, the Buhari administration, and now the Tinubu administration all have failed to be able to secure Nigeria. And the question those of us who are journalists want to ask for the opposition like the ADC and each individual who aspires to have the ticket of the party, what significantly different would you do? I think Elijah Abubakar talked about putting more boots on the ground and all that. For you, what can turn the tide? What will Nigeria hear from you right now? They begin to contemplate. Maybe Rotimi Amaechi may be the right guy to help Nigeria's national insecurity to become a safe country.
You see, the question should have been, what did you do in Rivers State? Have you forgotten what Rivers State was like? The first thing we did is we brought intelligence. We got people, we contracted out intelligence in Rivers State. When those people came, even though I don't support when it comes to Nigeria, we can improve intelligence without contracting it out. So you get the Nigerian, you get the Nigerian police, you get the state security services. Let us improve on our intelligence and training. Intelligence will tell you where these people are, how many weapons they have, when they sleep, when they wake up, when they eat. Then you make sure that our soldiers are properly trained, that can confront these people, and you fund them. You fund the military. You must make sure they have enough equipment and enough money. You must make sure that if any soldier dies, you're able to pick up from where he stopped with his family. They must know that they want to die for the country. That's what we did in Rivers State. We paid every person we lost at the war front. We took over the family. In fact, there was somebody that was shot while flying the helicopter. We flew him out of the country. and we pay the children's school fees. That's what we need to do. We need to encourage the Nigerian military. They have the capacity to be able to do this. Unfortunately, the funds coming from the budget seem not to be either enough or somebody is diverting it somewhere. So the president needs to ask those questions. So I agree with Vice President Atiku when he says put more boots on ground. Yes, but if you put more boots on ground without information, without intelligence, then they may be likely not to be able to perform. So you need intelligence, you need equipment, you need more boots on ground.
So if the challenge is intelligence, lack of intelligence, and perhaps corruption with the defense budget, and you had the opportunity as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to make decisions on those subjects to solve the challenge of insecurity, within what timeline do you think you'll be able to end, or as much as possible, reduce insecurity in Nigeria by at least 80%? So what timeline should Nigerians give you if you were president?
You know I'm laughing. Why would you give me a timeline? Why? The reason why I ask that question is I'm not yet president. You have to go there and assess the situation. You have to first assess the situation. You have to sit with the military, because you may be making promises. Oh, 1 year I'll sort it out. And you get there, you're overwhelmed. So the first thing is to ask, what is the problem? I already know. So people are being killed. So what is the solution? The military will tell you. They will tell you what are their handicaps. They tell you what to do. Then you ask yourself, priorities. Do I choose security, or do I choose education? Which one comes first and the other? In Rivers State, what did we do? The first thing we did in Rivers State is to ask the question: if we don't sleep well, if we don't sort out this insecurity, we can't go to school. Our children will be able to go to school. Children will not go to school, just like now. Imagine Kwara shutting down the entire schools in Kwara State. Of course I won't do that. So what is currently happening there, let me tell you, I said that at the Nine University. The rich men are sending their children overseas to private institutions. The poor men are not being offered education. Now, if we need to deal, yesterday I heard about what happened in Kwara. They ransacked about 2-3 villages in Kwara. People are not sleeping. So I can't say in 2 years. No, I will have to find out with my team how to go about it. If I can say it in 2 years or in 3 years. But when I face security, it will be the first thing on my agenda.
Well, you've had an aerial view position to assess these things before, being in the former administration, and you've been a governor before. So we're hoping you'll be able to give a timeline. But another critical matter that you may have perhaps spoken to earlier on is, perhaps the monies from subsidy savings not being judiciously expended. We've heard the administration say to us that the governors are getting more allocation, and this government has in fact taking the subnationals to court on the matter of local government autonomy. We've heard the president say to the governors, wet the grass more. We've heard him even threaten to issue an executive order should local government autonomy not be implemented in line with the Supreme Court verdict. And we have in fact more governors at this point. But what we're hearing is that the Constitution has to be amended for direct payment to be made to local government accounts. As president, what would you do differently to navigate around the politics of the thorough implementation of local government autonomy to ensure that funds get indeed to the grassroots?
Somehow, the governors are not only the problem. The first step, constitutional amendment. When I got the judgment, I said, well, the wise men in the Supreme Court can never be wrong. But we all know as lawyers that the right thing would have been to amend the Constitution, because the Constitution is very clear there must be a JAG fund. There must be a joint meeting between the state governors and the local government to be able, and the federal government to be able to discharge that responsibility of getting the money to the local government. So you need to amend the Constitution to enable the local government to have access to these funds. Now, you need to also make sure that these funds are judiciously applied, because they're not currently being judiciously applied. Whether you like, all you have done by that judgment is to transfer from one, I'm being careful not to use the wrong word, but the government will be happy as a government. But from one misapplication of funds to another misapplication of funds in the local government. Now, what you need to do is, after the amendment of the Constitution, and then the funds are given straight to the local government chairman, you must ensure that they are punished because they don't have immunity. You can't say, oh, I can't arrest the local government chairman because he has immunity. The governors have immunity, but the local government chairman don't have immunity. So if they know that there are consequences for application of those funds, then they will go to jail. If they know they will go to jail, then the funds will be properly applied. So those rural things, like I've just told you here, primary schools is the responsibility of the local government. They neither build one, nor do they renovate any. So primary healthcare center is also the responsibility of the local government chairman. But they also abandon that responsibility. When I was governor, I took those responsibilities from them by reaching an agreement with them to allow me to take that responsibility. And I discharge that responsibility by building in every village we have in River State a primary school and a primary healthcare center, and I employ doctors and teachers. So to do that, you should first amend the constitution. When you amend the constitution, then and they now have direct access to the money, then the governors cannot interfere. But the governors must look at what they are doing so that they are punishing, they don't apply the money.
So, and that leads me to the next question. So, as governor, did you allow local government funds get to the local government as governor, or did you superintend over those funds? So, do you stand in a position where you can say that you have the moral right to either criticize a local government, governors rather, or to say that you would amend the constitution if local governments didn't thrive under your watch?
From the beginning of the day I became the governor of River State to the day I left, I never saw a local government chairman over the issue of money. Never knew how the money was. Never talked to them about their money. Never touched the money. I told them, I said, do a referendum of all the aspirants and candidates. Do a referendum. They will tell you in River State, all, including those who hate me, will tell you that money is not my problem. I don't talk to people about money. I never talked to any governor, any local government chairman. I can give you their names, you call them, I'll give you their phone number, you call them and ask them. If any day they met with me, sent me a gift, or called me one day, or I sat with them in a meeting and directed them use the money for this purpose. No, I don't do that. That is not being giving them their independence or autonomy. I did the same with judiciary. You can ask the chief judge. Never called him one day. Whatever he put in the budget, he got the money up front. Because I believe, as a former speaker, that I should play by the rule of law. That is the first thing we need to do. There has to be rule of law and order. Currently, we don't have that. The judiciary needs independence, complete funding, complete independence. The government does not have to interfere. The local government needs complete autonomy. The governor does not need to interfere just with the same as the president. And I did that as governor of River State. And I still say, let us have a listen back to all the candidates and aspirants and see who will fare better.
So, well, you left the PDP pre-2015 and, described the PDP as the problem. Then you moved to the APC. Then you've left the APC again to the ADC. What do you say to people who say, well, it doesn't look like you're fighting for Nigerians. They see you as a serial disruptor who falls out of favor when you're either no more holding the aces as a minister or having a key part in the government, or in the event that you lost a primary?
Look, again, funny question. So I left the
PDP.
The country knew what happened. I was literally chased out of PDP. You want me to remind you that I was chased out of PDP?
Who chased you out?
The president.
How did he chase you out?
The president. Eh?
How did he chase you out? That's President Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes, with his wife. They took over the political structure in River State and chased me out. The same with APC.
Was that President Tinubu that chased you out of the APC?
Hold on, sir. I will never keep quiet in the face of injustice. So when I do that, they begin to plan to make me irrelevant. So that happened in PDP. The President Goodluck and his wife chased me out and handed over the structure to other people. So I moved with all of us who were governors, and my offense was because I was chairman of Governors Forum. Okay, come to APC. We contested, the same happened. I was chased out of APC. Then I went to ADC. But that's not even the issue. So let's look at, forget people who chased who and who didn't chase who. I don't also agree with the policies some of them are pursuing. I have sat down with President Goodluck Jonathan several times on the issue of my disagreement and what the policies are. The first day they said President Tinubu won primaries, I told him I don't agree with him. What don't I agree with him? There is a balance in society. The balance is that you must protect all religious interests, all ethnic interests, and I don't see the way the president governed Lagos, that he has the capacity to govern Nigeria. And today I'm not proving wrong. I would not be president and everybody will come from the south. I will not be president and all of my friends will be ministers. No, Nigeria is complex and it's huge. All interests must come to play. Businessmen's interests, you must protect their interests. You must assist them to grow their business. You must run the economy in such a way that everybody can have a say. Everybody can have his investment grow. You must also allow the Hausa Fulani man to know that he's a Nigerian. You must allow the Igbo man to know that an Igbo man must be proud to be called a Nigerian. If we continue what we're doing currently, the Igbos will not be happy. They will continue to say they want to leave. So every interest must be represented. When I see this injustice and I speak out, they come after me.
Right. So I want us to speak to a key part of your time in government. The coalition has time and again faulted the president's handling of the economy, particularly the debt. And for someone who, during your tenure, oversaw the loans that were gotten to build infrastructure, do you also blame this government for getting loans in that sense? And perhaps you can put a figure to the loans that were secured during your time for either the rail infrastructure and the rest.
You know, the problem you have is what I call investigative journalism. But before you ask this question, you should have investigated. Now, the only loan we got in Ministry of Transport for railway, $1.6 billion. $1.6 billion. You know, when we get to cabinet and we get approval to award contracts and we say we'll apply for loan, everybody calculate it. If you compute those loans we wanted to apply for, it will amount to nearly $36 billion. We did not apply for those loans. Even if we did not get those loans. We got only $1.6 billion from China.
So what exactly is the point here? Because my question is, when the coalition speaks to the government's handling of loans or collection of loans, you also collected loans. So I'm asking you, that do you fault this government for collecting loans? This is not a matter of investigation. The figures are out there.
You didn't get my answer. Nothing wrong with loans. Get it right. The magnitude of the loans they are currently collecting is frightening. Completely frightening. Secondly, the application of those loans, they should show us what they've done. Since I left Ministry of Transport, there's no railway commissioning. As Minister of Transport, we commissioned more than two railway lines. We commissioned the Lagos Ibadan. We commissioned Kano Kaduna. The president commissioned the FCT internal rail line. We launched Kano. We launched Kaduna Kano. We launched it. We commissioned Itabewari that goes to South. So let President Tinubu tell us what. In fact, they tried to commission the project that I started, the Port Harcourt-Aba rail line, which they've completed the tracks. But to build ordinary station in Port Harcourt and Aba, they abandoned it. Most people don't know that I started Port Harcourt-Aba and it's completed. Why it's not being seen is because they refuse to build the train station in Port Harcourt and the train station in Aba. So sometimes when my friends from the southeast ask me what rail line did you build in the southeast, they don't know that I commenced the Port Harcourt Maiduguri because I'm from Rivers State, and we have completed the Port Harcourt Aba is completed and running, but I hear now it's been abandoned. So when you take loan, Nigerians must see what the loan is used for. Currently, they should tell us what they use the money for. I want to see. I'm willing to attend.
Your Excellency, we're totally out of time. Yes, you're totally out of time. Let me just ask you a political question before we wrap up. And you've been speaker for 8 years, governor for 8 years, minister for 8 years. So you know that when it comes to politics, it's about numbers. Sometimes it's not about who is the best. It's about who can win. So I'm asking about viability criteria. Elijah Atiku Abubakar is coming with 6.9. Peter Obi is coming with 6.1 based on the last election. Robbie is coming with 1-point-something million. You had talked about the fact that your structure was taken over from you in the Rivers State, so you haven't been able to produce a governor. Like governors like to produce successors in that sense. And you see what is playing out in Rivers State as we speak. So in terms of viability, not necessarily who is more competent, viability for numbers, do you think you can match the other guys in your team?
It's the questions you ask that make me give answers that look as if I'm not in tune with my colleagues in in the ADC. Let's take your question. I ran in APC and I was second without anybody's support, and I was second. So I wasn't on the ballot. Okay, so President Vice President who came with 6 point something, my friend and colleague P2B came with 6 point something million votes and all that. Fine, good question. But we are registering now in ADC. Why haven't that 6 point something million registered with ADC? Why are we struggling? Why do we have 3 million? See, the factors are different. Nigerians are hungry. They are looking for somebody who can find solution to their problem. That's why I say that it's about viability and capacity. I said so in the ADC convention, and that I am the most viable to contest that election because Nigerians are looking for the following factors: who can put food on our table, who can change the issue of security. I have run Rivers State and I've shown that I can fight insecurity. Who again can represent us well? And I'm absolutely here. Of all of us running, I'm 60. Whether you like it or not, I'm 60. Unfortunately, I'm 60. Whether fortunately or unfortunately, I'm 60. So it is not about this person. If I was on the ballot, I would have had more than 6 point something million votes because of my acceptability. So you can't ask that question because I was on the ballot. But you see, it's the question you ask that make me in answering that question. It looks as if I may have to correct you when you talk about my.
But these men, pardon me, but these men have been tested. They've gotten their 6 million votes. What are you planning to bring to the table? They've brought 6.9, 6.1. Can you do better than them? Just in 5 seconds.
Okay, you were causing a problem by asking those questions. That's why I have always refused to be interviewed. This one, the party forced me to allow you to interview before I wouldn't have interviewed. Okay, so let's look at all the votes you have mentioned. But no, they've not been able to defeat Tinubu. Only somebody who knows how to defeat Tinubu should be able to run against Tinubu.
All right.
Yeah, do you agree?
Okay, Your Excellency, it's not about agreeing or not agreeing, but it's just a question. Perhaps you know what they don't know, so maybe that's your advantage because you led the campaign for Buhari and you played a key role.
I led it twice.
Yeah.
I led it twice, and I delivered 50 million votes.
So you're coming with 50 million votes indirectly.
That's the question you're asking.
Well, we wish your party well because Nigerians are worried about whether the ego battle will make or mar the coalition. Rotimi Amaechi, former governor of Rivers State.
No, get it right. There is no ego battle. I've told you here, Governor P2B is
totally out of time.
qualified. Hold on, I know that. Governor P2B is eminently qualified to govern this country. He is. If he wins primary, I will be at the forefront. I would want to even be DG. At the forefront of those who can pay for him. If Vice President Atiku wins the primary, he's also eminently qualified to govern this country. He is. He's very experienced. Age comes with experience, you know. I will also be at the forefront of those who can pay for him. Of course, I will be. But if Vice President Atiku was the presidential candidate last time, he will not do a Muslim ticket.
All right. We're totally out of time, Your Excellency. We're totally out of time. It's an ongoing conversation. You've made your commitment, so we put you on record. Apparently, you want this to go to the primary, but thank you.
Anybody who wins the primary, I'll be at the forefront.
Thank you, sir. Rotimi Amaechi, former governor of Rivers State, former minister of transportation. We are thankful that you came through, and we'll be inviting you yet again when all of this is done and dusted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Bukola.
Very interesting conversation. We'll be following up in the coming days to find out why the 6.1 million votes delivered to the Labour Party in 2023 have not registered with the ADC. But of course, we'll continue that conversation later on. Let's move on to a matter that is very critical this morning, which has to do with public interest and has to do with the environment. Public-spirited individuals have brought to our attention a serious environmental concern in Ikeja. And joining us this morning to bring us insights into what's playing out is Mr. Solomon Okpekushusi. He is the Managing Director, Vast Coin, and he joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Good morning, Mr. Okpekushusi. Thank you for coming on the morning brief.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And so we've seen quite a number of documents drawing attention to the construction of sanitary infrastructure under the bridge in Ikeja. Help us understand the implications of this, how many sanitary infrastructure and what has been happening so far since your observations began? How has it begun to impact on the environment?
Okay, so from my understanding, what the local government chairman is trying to build under the bridge is a 16-unit public toilet facility, and this facility is being built at the bottom, the base of a column that stands about 13 meters high. And then this column stands as a support system for a slab that travels like more than 20 meters over the rail line to the other side of the road to meet the next supporting columns there. And this is, the first time I heard about this development was 8 months ago when I went to his office to congratulate him on his his election, and then I made him understand at the point that this can not work, because if you are putting such a facility at the base of a critical load-bearing columns that it's not just about the structural attacking the structural integrity of the bridge. We're also talking about air pollution here. We're talking about there is huge environmental impact, and then at the same time, our facility is the only private investment facing this particular location, and any kind of negative impact is going to affect us disproportionately. I mean, we will be the one to suffer it the most. And then I've tried every possible means to relate with the chairman about the situation, but he doesn't seem to care. We have talked to people in the neighborhood who can as well reach out to him, and then he doesn't care. We've petitioned Lamata, we've petitioned the Lagos State Physical Planning Permit Authority, Ministry of Environment, all the necessary regulatory bodies so far. And the only thing we got for now is people from Ministry of Environment who actually attempt to lock the place. And then I don't know what changed after that.
And it's been unlocked yet again?
Yes, and as I'm talking to you right now, I mean, the construction is still going on.
Okay, so how far-reaching is this construction? Is it just within your area, or it goes beyond Ikeja?
Okay, so
other parts of under the bridge?
Okay, so there is a fence next to the column, and this construction is just from the fence to the column. You understand? And there is he claims that he's going to create the septic tank and the soakaway system just near the facility there. And this is just how shades of wrong. I don't know how else to, concern if you are looking at it from the angle that this is the local government of the capital city of the third biggest economy in Africa. I mean, this is...
Has there been any alternative engineering advisory to counter your concern, to say that, look, there's absolutely, this doesn't pose any serious environmental risk to neighbors around the bridge?
No, not at all. In fact,
not from the local government?
Not from the local government. In fact, I'll tell you that 3 blocks away from the local government itself, there is a public toilet facility run by Lamata. So I don't understand why, the essence of this construction at this critical and this very dangerous location, I really do not understand it. And then we've also tried to advise him on how he can relocate it to other. Even the local government is a more suitable place to put such facility. And there are
so if there are no engineering technical explanations as to maybe posing a danger, so why is that an issue?
If there is no what?
If I heard you correctly,
yes.
She did ask whether engineers have spoken about possible danger of that facility being there.
No, maybe I got the question wrong. I said that he has not given a response as to what engineering
criteria, whether it's going to pose any
yes, to
danger.
counter what we have said.
What's the basis of what you're saying?
Okay, the basis is that you cannot put such a facility at the base of such kind of, that is a load-bearing column. You need to be at the location.
Is it an engineering structural concern you're raising, or just an environmental problem? What exactly are you raising?
I'm raising the engineering concern, environmental concern. And then we are in a society where there is a trending news about air pollution in Lagos these days. And then this particular situation just contributes and then just wants to, And then this situation I'm talking about, this space have a history of street vending, homeless people, hooligans and stuff. And there is documented process for this. We've made several efforts to try to curb this issue. And
so have you consulted with other engineers, maybe the Institute of Engineers, to provide an alternative view as to whether or not the infrastructure poses a threat to the people around and to businesses around?
Oh yes.
Such that the local government and indeed perhaps the state government can take you seriously?
Yes, we wrote a petition to the Ministry of Works, and we are expecting to get a response.
All right.
So just before we go, so if nothing happens, then what? If your petition, your concern, all the things you've raised, nothing happens, then what?
Well, I don't know. I'm only a citizen, and then I am only doing the best I can to let the necessary and then all regulatory bodies that can get involved in this to be part of it, because there's nothing I can do absolutely than what I am already doing.
And this is a clarion call to the Ministry of Works and indeed others who have professional expertise in that regard to ascertain whether indeed that infrastructure, sanitary infrastructure being provided by the Ikeja local government poses a serious risk, as the vast coin group has drawn our attention to this morning, such that something can be done about it.
Sorry, Bukola.
Yes, indeed.
What's the name of the chairman of the council? Do you have anything? Do you know his name?
Dauda Lawal. So.
Yeah. So this is an
Akim Dauda.
Yes. I needed you to put his name on record so that in case he's watching, if he intends to come and respond, we'll be more than glad for him to come and respond.
Yeah. Well, we must anchor at this point, and thank you. Mr. Opeshusi is the Managing Director of Vast Coin Limited. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And a fine place to anchor the show today, not just today's edition, but indeed for the entire week. Thank you so much for being there. Sunrise Daily is up next. We'll be back again next week. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
Well, a clarion call to citizens: do not keep quiet, okay? Speak out. I encourage you to have a great weekend.